Hello again. Thank you for joining us on this exciting journey to learn how to build an Azure data infrastructure with Bicep in 6 steps. Step 1. Set up VS Code with Bicep extension. To kick off our demo, let's talk about the essential tools you'll need. First up is Visual Studio Code. This editor is ideal for working with Bicep, offering a user-friendly interface and a host of helpful features. Then you'll want to add the Microsoft Bicep extension to Visual Studio Code. This extension is a real asset, providing syntax highlighting and auto-completion to make writing Bicep code more intuitive and efficient. With these tools set up, you're ready to dive into deploying resources on Azure using Bicep. Let's get started and see the power of infrastructure as code in action. On your screen now is our storage.bicep file, a crucial part of our infrastructure as code setup. In this segment, we'll walk through the Bicep code that sets the foundation for our Azure data infrastructure. This script focuses specifically on the storage aspects of our setup. Let's break down what this Bicep template does. Create and deploy an Azure Data Lake Gen 2 storage account. We start by defining the parameters for our storage account, including its name and location. This step ensures we have a scalable and secure place to store our large-scale data for processing and analytics. Step 2. Create 2 containers, raw and curated. Within our data lake, we're creating 2 containers. The raw container is where we'll store unprocessed data. The curated container is designated for data that's been processed and is ready for analysis. This organization is key to maintaining a clean and efficient data pipeline. Step 3. Create an Azure Data Lake Gen 2. Alright, now that we've thoroughly explored our storage Bicep file, it's time to put our code into action. We're going to execute our deployment command using Azure CLI. This is where we see the real power of infrastructure as code, turning our script into actual cloud resources. To get started with the deployment, we need to open the terminal in Visual Studio Code. Let's go to Terminal in the top menu, and then select New Terminal. This opens a command line interface right within our editor, which is incredibly convenient for running Azure CLI commands. Now, before executing the command, make sure you are in the correct directory where the storage Biceps file is located. Also, to successfully execute this, we need to supply a few important parameters along with our command. These include the name of our Azure resource group, the storage account name, the geographic region where our resources will be located, and the name of our Bicep file. If all goes as planned, executing this command will create our Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 account in the Azure portal. It will also set up the 2 containers we've defined, raw for unprocessed data and curated for data that's ready for analysis. Let's go ahead and execute the command. Watch closely as our Bicep script brings our data infrastructure to life in the Azure cloud. Step 4. Upload a CSV file and create an ADF pipeline. Okay, let's take a look at the results of our deployment in Azure Storage Explorer. This is where we can see our newly created data lake in action. Here we have our Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 account, and as you can see, both containers raws and curated have been successfully created. Now I'm going to upload a CSV file named customer.csv into our raw container. This file is going to be a key part of our demonstration. The customer.csv file is now in the raw container, and this sets the stage for our next step. We're going to move this file from raw to curated, but not manually. Instead, we'll automate this process using an Azure Data Factory ADF pipeline, which we'll set up in our next Bicep script. Step 5. Deploy an Azure Data Factory. Okay, let's continue with our session, now turning our focus to the Azure Data Factory side of things. We have our ADF.bicep script ready, designed specifically to set up and streamline our data workflows in Azure. Let's dive into the key elements of this script. First, the Azure Data Factory creation. Our script initiates by setting up an Azure Data Factory. This is our core platform for managing data flows, crucial for the orchestration and automation of our data pipeline processes in the cloud. We then define a pipeline within this data factory. Its purpose is straightforward: to automate the transfer of data from our raw container to curated. This is a key step in refining our data for further analysis. As a practical example, we'll use this pipeline to process a file named customer.csv, moving it from raw to curated. This illustrates how our Bicep script can handle real-world data tasks effectively. With these components, our script is all set to create a data processing solution in Azure. Let's proceed to deployment and see our data factory come to life. Step 6. Checking Azure Data Factory on Azure portal. Let's bring everything together and see our Bicep script in action. We're now launching our deployment using Azure CLI. This process is creating our Azure Data Factory and setting up the pipeline. This pipeline is specifically configured to copy the customer.csv file from the raw container to the curated container. We provide essential parameters like at the resource group, Bicep file name, data factory name, and storage account name to kickstart the deployment. With our deployment complete, let's head over to the Azure portal to check on our data factory. Here we see our Azure Data Factory has been successfully created. Let's navigate and find our pipeline. And here's our pipeline right within the data factory. Opening it, we can see the copy activity we set up. Let's run this pipeline and watch the magic happen. As we wait for the successful completion message, and there it is. The customer.csv file has been successfully copied to the curated folder. Our data pipeline has done its job, showcasing the real-world application of our Bicep script. This concludes our demonstration. We've successfully automated a data processing workflow in Azure using Bicep. Thank you for joining me in this journey. For more information, please visit www.dataopshouse.com. Stay tuned for more sessions like this, where we explore the power of cloud automation